Your placard looks fake to me. Connor Hayes, 22 years old, and 3 months into his parking enforcement job, held up the disabled veteran placard between 2 fingers like it was contaminated. William Doc Anderson, 80 years old, and wearing a faded Navy flight jacket, stood beside his 1998 Honda Accord in the grocery store parking lot, watching his car being hooked to a tow truck. "Sir, that's a legitimate placard," William said quietly. "I've had it for 40 years. Connor smirked. "Yeah, and you walked just fine from the store." "I watched you. Disabled people don't walk like that." He made air quotes around the word disabled. William's weathered hands tightened on his grocery bag. Behind him, a woman with a phone was recording everything. Patricia Martinez, a VA social worker who lived 2 doors down from William, had recognized both men immediately and knew this was about to go very wrong for the young parking officer. If you believe respect for veterans should be non-negotiable, comment honor below. William Anderson hadn't asked for special treatment in 60 years. When he came home from Vietnam in 1968, he'd packed his uniform in a box, accepted his Purple Heart in a quiet ceremony with 3 other wounded servicemen, and never spoke about it again. The nightmares came every few weeks, the vibration of helicopter blades, the sound of rounds punching through metal, the feeling of hot shrapnel entering his abdomen and chest. But he worked through them. He became an auto mechanic, married his high school sweetheart Dorothy, raised 2 daughters, and lived a quiet life in suburban San Diego. The disabled veteran placard came years later after the 3rd surgery to remove scar tissue from his intestines. His doctor insisted. "William, you earned this," Dr. Chen had said. "Your body went through trauma most people can't imagine. Use the placard." So he did, but sparingly. Only on bad days when the internal scarring made standing for long periods agonizing. Today was a bad day. He'd needed groceries for dinner, and the pain was particularly sharp. Connor Hayes saw the world in black and white. In his 3 months as a parking enforcement officer for Premium Parking Solutions, he'd written over 200 citations and called for 17 tows. His supervisor loved him. "Finally, someone who doesn't let people get away with nonsense," his boss had said last week. Connor took pride in his work. He'd grown up watching his father struggle to find parking because some faker was using a disabled spot. He developed a personal crusade against what he called placard abuse. In his mind, truly disabled people were in wheelchairs or on crutches. Anyone who could walk was probably scamming the system. When he saw William walk out of the grocery store, moving slowly but steadily, his radar went up. He watched William place groceries in the trunk, watched him grip the car door a bit longer than normal before lowering himself into the driver's seat. "Faker," Connor muttered. He called for a tow truck immediately. William had just started his engine when Connor appeared at his window, knocking hard. "Sir, turn off the vehicle. You're parked illegally." William looked confused. "I have a disabled placard. It's hanging right there." He pointed to the blue placard clearly visible on his rearview mirror. Connor leaned down, scrutinizing it with exaggerated suspicion. "When did you get this?" 1984, William said. "The date's printed on it. Looks faded to me. Looks tampered with. Could be fake." Connor pulled out his citation book. "Also, I observed you walking without assistance. Disabled placards are for people who actually can't walk." William's voice remained calm, but something in his eyes hardened. "Son, I can walk. That doesn't mean I'm not disabled." "Sure it doesn't," Connor said sarcastically. "Everyone's got an invisible disability now, right? Let me guess. Anxiety, bad knee." The tow truck pulled up, its yellow lights flashing. Connor waved it forward enthusiastically. "What are you doing?" William asked, alarm creeping into his voice. "My job. This vehicle is being towed for fraudulent use of a disabled placard. You can contest it downtown." Patricia Martinez had been loading her own groceries 3 spaces away when she heard Connor's raised voice. She recognized William immediately, the quiet man who still mowed his own lawn at 80, who'd helped her carry furniture when she moved in, who never talked about himself. She also recognized the Placard situation because she dealt with it constantly at the VA. The number of veterans whose disabilities weren't visible was staggering. Internal injuries, traumatic brain injuries, chronic pain, PTSD. She pulled out her phone and started recording. "Excuse me," she called out, walking toward them. "What's happening here?" Connor barely glanced at her. "Official parking enforcement business, Mom. Please step back." "I'm his neighbor. Mr. Anderson, are you all right?" William looked embarrassed. "It's fine, Patricia. Just a misunderstanding." "It's not a misunderstanding," Connor said firmly. "This man is committing placard fraud. I watched him walk across the parking lot like any normal person. He doesn't need this spot." Patricia's professional demeanor cracked. "Did you verify the placard's authenticity?" "I don't need to verify it. I can use my judgment, and I'm judging this—" Connor held up the placard again. "Is being misused by someone who clearly doesn't need it." The tow truck driver, a man in his 50s named Robert, had climbed out of his cab and was looking uncomfortable. "Connor, maybe we should run the placard number through the system first. That's protocol." "I know the protocol, Robert. Hook it up." William finally stepped out of his car, moving carefully. Patricia noticed the way he held his left side, the slight catch in his breath, the deliberate manner of his movements. Signs of someone managing chronic pain. "Sir, you need to stay back," Connor warned, "or I'll call the police for interfering with official duties." "Please do," Patricia said coldly. She held up her phone. "I'm recording this entire interaction. I'm a social worker with the Department of Veterans Affairs, and I'm documenting what appears to be discrimination against a disabled veteran." Connor's confidence flickered for just a moment. Veteran? He didn't say anything about being a veteran. He shouldn't have to, Patricia shot back. But Connor had already committed. "Look, I don't care if he was in the military or not. Rules are rules." The tow truck driver, Robert, hesitated, his hook hanging inches from William's car. "Connor, if he's a vet, maybe—" "Hook it," Connor snapped. Something in William's posture changed. He stood straighter, and his voice, which had been quiet and deferential, took on a different quality. Not louder, but harder. "Young man, I was a Navy door gunner on UH-1 Hueys in Vietnam. I flew combat missions over the Mekong Delta and the A Shau Valley. On March 12, 1968, my helicopter took heavy fire during an extraction. Shrapnel from an RPG hit me here." He touched his abdomen, and here, his chest, and here, his left thigh. 3 of the wounds went through my body. I have scar tissue throughout my intestines, and part of my left lung was removed. I was 19 years old. I was awarded the Purple Heart with 3 oak leaf clusters, which means I was wounded in combat 4 separate times, and I kept going back up. The parking lot had gone quiet. Several shoppers had stopped to watch. "The pain never stops," William continued. "But I learned to live with it. I learned to walk through it because I had a family to support and work to do. So yes, I can walk. But on days like today, when the scarring gets inflamed and standing feels like being shot all over again, I use the placard I earned." Patricia stepped forward, her phone still recording. "That placard is registered through the California DMV and verified by the Veterans Affairs medical system. It's linked to his service-connected disability rating, which I can tell you is 100%. That means the United States government has determined Mr. Anderson's injuries are completely disabling for employment purposes." She looked at Connor with barely controlled fury. "You just towed a veteran's car based on your personal judgment that he walked fine. Do you have medical training?" Connor's face had gone from confident to uncertain. "No, but do you know what internal injuries look like? Do you know that someone can have multiple organs damaged and still walk? Do you understand that not all disabilities are visible? Connor looked at Robert, who had already begun unhooking the car. "Sir, this was a mistake," Robert said to William. "Your car's not going anywhere." But Connor wasn't done trying to save face. "Look, if the placard's legitimate, fine. But he should have just explained that from the beginning. He shouldn't have to explain his Purple Hearts to park his car." Patricia's voice cut through like a whip. Several onlookers murmured agreement. One elderly man called out, "That's right. Leave the man alone." Connor's supervisor, Dave Mitchell, received Patricia's video on his phone 45 minutes later with a message from the city attorney's office. By then, the video had already been posted to social media and had 10,000 views. Dave's blood pressure spiked as he watched Connor dismissing the placard, calling it fake, ignoring protocol, and showing zero respect to an 80-year-old veteran. The part where Connor said, "I don't care if he was in the military," had already been clipped and shared separately with its own wave of outrage. Dave immediately called Connor. "Get back to the office. Now." When Connor arrived, Dave was joined by the company's regional manager and their legal counsel. "You're terminated, effective immediately," Dave said without preamble. "But I was doing my job," Connor protested. "Your job is to verify placards through the DMV system, not play doctor and decide who looks disabled enough. Your job is to follow protocol, which you ignored. Your job is to treat people with basic respect, which you completely failed at." The legal counsel added, "We're facing a lawsuit for discrimination and wrongful towing. The city is also investigating. You're done." The lawsuit came 3 weeks later. William hadn't wanted to sue. He never wanted attention. But his daughter, a civil rights attorney in Los Angeles, convinced him, "Dad, this isn't about you. It's about every veteran, every disabled person who gets harassed because they don't fit someone's narrow definition of disability. You fight this. You help all of them." Premium Parking Solutions settled quickly for $50,000 and agreed to implement mandatory training on disability rights and veteran placards for all employees. The city of San Diego issued a formal public apology and created new oversight procedures for parking enforcement. The police department added a flag in their system for veteran-registered placards to prevent similar incidents. But the real change happened in the parking lot itself. The grocery store manager, a Marine Corps veteran himself, installed a memorial plaque near the disabled parking spaces. It read, "Reserved for those who sacrificed. Respect their service. Honor their needs. Judgment is not your right." William still shopped there weekly. Connor Hayes, now unemployed and publicly shamed, eventually issued a written apology that William accepted but never acknowledged publicly. "He's young," William told Patricia one evening. "He'll either learn or he won't. That's not my burden to carry." 6 months after the incident, Patricia organized a Veterans Awareness event at the local VA hospital. William agreed to speak, reluctantly. Standing before a room of social, workers, healthcare providers, and parking enforcement officials brought in for mandatory training, he spoke for 15 minutes about invisible wounds. "When I came home in 1968, I looked whole," he began. "My scars were hidden under my shirt. People expected me to be the same kid who'd left, but I wasn't. Parts of me were gone, replaced with metal fragments and scar tissue. The pain became normal. I thought not complaining was strength. And maybe it was. But it also made people forget that I was hurting." He paused, his voice thickening. "That placard isn't a convenience. It's acknowledgement. It says, 'We see you. We remember. Your sacrifice still matters.' When someone questions it based on how I walk, they're not just questioning a piece of plastic. They're questioning whether my pain is real, whether my service mattered, whether I deserve basic dignity." The room was silent except for the sound of people quietly crying. So I'm asking you, all of you, before you judge someone's disability, before you decide they don't look sick enough or hurt enough, remember that the deepest wounds are often the ones you can't see, and they never fully heal. The story spread beyond San Diego. News outlets picked it up. Veteran advocacy groups used it as a teaching moment. Connor's name became shorthand for the dangers of assumption and arrogance. But William remained uncomfortable with being called a hero or a symbol. "I just wanted to buy groceries," he told Patricia one morning over coffee. She smiled sadly. "I know. But sometimes our private pain becomes public teaching. You didn't choose it, but you're handling it with grace." William looked out his kitchen window at his old Honda, the placard hanging from its mirror. Dorothy used to hate when I downplayed my injuries. She'd say, "Will, you're allowed to hurt, allowed to use the help you earned." Took me 40 years to really hear her. He turned back to Patricia. "Maybe that's the lesson. Not that I was wounded and survived, but that accepting help, using that placard, telling my story, isn't weakness. It's just truth." Patricia raised her coffee mug. "To truth, then." "To truth," William echoed. And in that small kitchen, over simple coffee, two people who understood invisible wounds sat together in the kind of peaceful silence that speaks louder than any parking citation ever could. Subscribe if you believe that disability doesn't always look the way we expect, and that respect for those who served should never require them to prove their pain. True honor means believing people when they say they're hurting, especially when the wounds are hidden from view.